Fallout Equestria the Chrysalis, Chapter 25, Serenity. I murmured and rolled to my side, pulling my thick blankets in tight as I nestled into the plush softness of my bed. It was so warm and comfy that I just wanted to stay snuggled up there all day long. I made a good attempt at it, but consciousness was unrelenting. Eventually, I pushed back the pile of blankets and slowly stretched, yawning as I met the day. I'd slept well past dawn, and the sun lit my cozy bedroom brightly. I must have been quite exhausted to have slept in so late, but for the life of me, I just couldn't place what I might have been doing. Maybe I had just stayed up late. That was probably it. I rolled over to the edge of my bed, reflecting on how it was really too large for just a single pony. Maybe Starlight should be there. No, she had her own house. Still, it was quite large enough for a visit. My hooves set down on the thick carpet, and I took a moment to enjoy the soft feeling, combined with the warmth of the sun flowing over my side. They were such simple pleasures, so easily available, yet I soaked in them as if it had been ages since I'd enjoyed their comfort. With a smile, I turned and slowly walked past the end table and dresser to approach the broad window. I stood, my front hooves on the sill, soaking in the sun, and looked out at Serenity. My home was situated on a loop, and from my second-story window I could see all the houses that lines the loop, with their spacious yards and lush gardens. The street continued off from the loop, leading to the rest of our pleasant little town of some 30 homes and a hooful of shops, surrounded by lush grassy hills and light forests. I swung the window open, drawing in a deep breath of the fresh morning air. Yeah, moving to Serenity was the best decision I had ever made. I couldn't really remember making that decision, but I must have done so to be there, and that was the important part. Shutting the window, I turned back to my room. I looked over at the closet and gave a cursory glance over the contents. I had a good collection of dresses and accessories after all, and it kinda seems like a shame to not use them. As I looked through them, I found myself coming up empty. I could have sworn I had a particular cloak, but I couldn't find it. I know it wouldn't have matched anything else I had, and it was far more practical than fashionable, but it was disappointing to not find it.
I know I have it.
I must have simply misplaced it when I was unpacking. Deciding against wearing anything, I made my way to the door. I was nearing the stairs when I heard quiet voices drifting up from below.
I have guests?
I didn't remember having guests, but I couldn't imagine anyone sneaking in just to chat in my living room. They must be guests, after all. Still, I paused. Snooping in on conversations really is rude, but I couldn't help it. There was something wonderfully mischievous about it, and that seemed just so appealing. It was longer than usual, but it shouldn't be a problem. The voice was male, with a rich tone that struck me as handsome. I couldn't picture that voice coming from anything but an incredibly attractive stallion. Another voice sounded, this one female, with a delicate and clear tone that sounded equally pretty.
Control would say so. They're not the ones who have to wait in here.
They're waiting just like us, the stallion said, with an inflection that seemed like the auditory equivalent of rolling his eyes. It's not like they're able to just kick back and relax like we are. Someone has to monitor the data. They're still not sure why she isn't awake yet. Medical insists she's fit.
Fit? Except for sleeping for 13 hours. I'm starting to wonder if she's ever going to wake up. Control said the brain activity was weird. What if she's got brain damage?
There was a long pause before the stallion spoke again. No, Control says they're sure it's not brain damage. They say the brain activity is weird but familiar. They'll figure it out.
Good for them.
The mayor said with a sigh.
I'm bored of waiting. I'm gonna see if they thought to stock any drinks. Care to join me?
There was a huff of amusement from the stallion, but he agreed and I heard them moving to the kitchen.
Had I taken a physical when I moved here? That must be it. It still seems weird, but that makes sense.
I sighed and started down the stairs to join my guests. It seems like the proper thing to do. And yet, I could easily avoid them. It seems like such a sneaky thing to do, slipping out on guests that I must have invited. but I felt in far too good of a mood to bog things down with medical discussions. But more importantly, it seemed so mischievous and exciting, like I'd be getting away with something I shouldn't. I stepped back to the landing, returning to my room. I could easily fly out from my bedroom window without them ever knowing I was up.
Oh, I wouldn't let them wait too long.
I had still invited them over, probably, and I didn't want to be rude by completely neglecting them. I just wanted to get out and enjoy the morning a bit first. A pleasant stroll through the lush park under those clear skies and warm sun seemed so... The first word that came to mind was rare. But that wasn't right. Serenity was scheduled for warm, clear weather most days. I settled on pleasant, even if the word seemed somehow insufficient. I stepped up to the window, swinging it open, then hesitated. I wasn't entirely sure why. Sure, I was a changeling, but Serenity was a place of friendship, love, and tolerance. They wouldn't care if I was a changeling, or a griffin, or a zebra. So why was I disguised? I must have had a good reason. I looked down at my chest, raising a leg to run a hoof through the thick fluff of my chest. Not only was I was disguised in the wrong form. Why'd I shorten my mane and tail and thickened my coat? It was far too pleasant of a day to need that much insulation. The weather must have been bad before. Yeah, it had been cold and rainy, that was it. But not here. Serenity hadn't been scheduled for sunny days with the rare shower. It must have been before I arrived, and I simply hadn't bothered to change yet.
Yes, that was it.
It was only as I went to remove my disguise that I realized I was dangerously low on love. It was far too little to squander on transformation. I was tempted to strip my current disguise to save energy, but I had kept myself disguised for a reason. And while I couldn't remember what that reason was, I was certain it was a good one.
No matter. I know exactly where to get love.
With flying off the table, I instead climbed out of the window, moving silently to the edge of the roof. It was just a short drop down to the soft grass below. I had made more strenuous leaps before. It did seem a little silly, sneaking out of my own home, but I couldn't deny that it was exciting. After a quick brush down to ensure my thick coat was lying smoothly, I casually trotted off around the loop. It really was a nice neighborhood. Willow and Rose's garden was in full bloom, gracing their yard with a rainbow of colors. At the next house over, Ricochet, one of Serenity's Griffin residents, was maneuvering a small cloud to water her lawn. We exchanged a quick wave as she swooped around, and I had the sudden desire to fly up in the air, banking and looping around without a care in the world. The next house was Strawberry's. She was out in the yard working on the fence. The old fence must have needed replacing, judging by the way she bucked one of the posts, snapping it off. She noticed me passing by and called out to me.
What the fuck are you smiling at? You enjoying the shit you brain dead little cunt? Or do you need someone to go over there and fuck start your head?
Strawberry had such a colorful way with words. I smiled and gave a little wave as I continued on. She responded with a snarl and she bucked down the rest of the fence.
Pull your head out of your ass and get a clue whisper, you retarded little shit!
I trotted on with a light step, thinking that I really should take the time to pay Strawberry a proper visit. Maybe I could do that after meeting with my guests. As mischievous as it was sneaking out on them, I couldn't let them wait too long. That would just be mean. Starlight's house was just a few doors down. I was just passing the house of her neighbor, Flay, when her front door opened. I halted, turning to admire the lilac bush at the corner of Flay's lawn. I wasn't quite certain why I did that. It was unobtrusive, something that would be unlikely to be noticed, and it let me watch the Earth Pony couple that exited Starlight's house without being obvious about watching them. I wasn't sure why I wanted to watch them, but it seems like the right thing to do. It was certainly better than going up to a pair of strangers and asking them why they were leaving my friend's house. It was another mare and stallion pair. They gave cheerful goodbyes and waves as they exited. I could barely make out what the mare said after the door shut.
She's certainly the most promising of this lot.
In the corner of my eye, I could see the stallion nod as they walked towards the street.
That she is. If she loves this whisper as much as she seems to, we should be.
I waited, listening in for a couple more seconds before I realized they weren't there. I blinked, looking around, but there was no sign of them. Even more strange, I couldn't quite place what had happened. I had been watching them in the corner of my eye and listening to them talk. I had seen them at one point. And then a couple of seconds later, I realized I didn't see them. But I had no memory of them actually leaving. A creeping feeling ran through my spine. Something wasn't quite right, and my mind spun as I focused on this new problem, attacking it like some new puzzle. I couldn't just miss something like that while observing a pair of ponies. If one of them was a unicorn, I would have guessed they used some sort of magic on me. Instead, I was left with the possibility that my perception was compromised. I could recall how muddled my perceptions were after waking up for 200 years in a cocoon, or the concerningly rising number of times I may have suffered a concussion. Or maybe I was just more hungry than I thought. I blinked. The creeping sense of wrongness grew even more as I tried to correlate these seemingly impossible flashes of memory. It was maybe 20 years since I hatched. Not 200. And in any case, I'd never been in a cocoon. Strawberry would have never tried to kill me, and I absolutely, positively, under no circumstances, had ever been blown up. Not even a tiny bit. I'd had a peaceful life in Equestria among friendly and loving ponies, and that had only gotten better once I had moved to Serenity. I was losing my mind. That was the solution that came screaming to the forefront of my mind until I shook the thoughts away. I'd just been sleeping for more than half a day. I must be remembering dreams.
Yes, that's it. The gray skies, the barren, dusty lands, the flashes of blood. It was all just a nightmare. And now I was awake.
Suppressing a shiver, I walked up to Starlight's door. Moments after knocking, the door opened to reveal Starlight, and her expression lit up the moment she saw me.
Whisper!
Her forelegs wrapped me in a crushing hug, and her mouth met mine, delivering an eager and energetic kiss that I, after a moment of surprise, happily returned. It was a blissful moment, tempered only by a single flaw. While I could feel Starlight's love, it seemed surprisingly distant. Not weak, mind you, it was nice and strong, but it felt as if I were trying to feed from across a room. One more factoid pointing to possible brain trauma. I was starting to think I should really go meet with those guests of mine. I must have given away some sign of my inner thoughts as Starlight stepped back from the kiss, a brow cocked curiously.
Her
eyes glanced downwards, and she smirked.
Trying out a new look, huh? Oh!
I looked down at myself again.
Right, that. I guess I forgot to change at some points, and now I'm a little low on love.
She chuckled softly, stepping back.
Well, why don't you come in instead of just standing in the doorway? I'm sure we can fix your little problem.
Seems like Sickle is the only one that's been resistant to this stuff, whatever it is that they're being put through. This feels so much like Tranquility Lane from Fallout 3. Anywho, let's get on to our serene donators. Top donators are 630, TacoCat598, Only One Thing, Ceru Orion, and IronSky. Darkside, Rayden, Narwhals, Blackmoonheart, Pastel Skies, Austin, Rolan, Stu Hex, Swordbrother, Mordred, Omicron, Lyrae, Will, Chris, Twinkie, Ridesoul, Baddest Waffle, Shadow Moon, Luigi88, Chancellor Crust, Big Smoke 369, Bobcat GJF, and many more sweet people. Thank you all so much for watching this video and live life to the fullest.